About a year ago, we took a detailed look into the 6th generation VFR and 2 variations of that bike. Now, it's probably my most popular video to date, and in it, I endorsed the 6th generation VFR as the one to own, particularly over its predecessor, the 5th generation, because of its styling updates and performance. Not surprisingly, some of you rebuffed this notion, but without a 5th generation VFR available at the time, I let these comments slide. But no more. Today, we're going to take this 5th generation VFR and pit it against my 6th generation to find out in a battle royale, winner take all for pink slips, which was the best VFR that you could buy. As I mentioned before, in my earlier video, I compared 2 variations of the 6th generation VFR, specifically the one made between 2002 and 2005, and the version made between 2006 and 2009 when the 6th generation ceased production. In the comparison, I felt that the earlier production Honda VFR, specifically my 2004 model here, had the performance advantage over the 2006 and later Honda VFR. To be more precise, the way the VTEC variable valves light up the bike at 6,800 RPM. In 2006, the Honda engineers somewhat tamed the VTEC whack and smoothed out the way it delivered power. This smoother running engine lost a little bit of luster, at least in my eyes, and I sold that bike down the road. If you're not a Honda VFR historian, then we can assume you don't own one yet. You may not know that the 5th generation VFR was the first to sport the RC46 engine design, and this design actually carried on into the 6th generation. The 5th generation VFR was built between 1998 and 2001, but in 2000, the bike received modern emissions and closed-loop fuel injection system. Now, closed-loop fuel injection system is something that we take for granted these days, but back then, before we had it, we had to do things like use enricher circuits to help warm up the bike, and in essence, we had very little control over what was going on in fuel mapping. There was basically one program in the engine control module, and that was it. Closed-loop fuel injection uses exhaust gas oxygen to help refine the intake air-fuel mixture, automatically making adjustments every few nanoseconds to ensure adequate proportions of both air and fuel has been delivered to the engine. So this upgrade on our 2000 model year VFR came with a catalytic converter and those aforementioned oxygen sensors. So this is the bike I wanted to test and run through the paces with my beloved 2004 Honda VFR. It had to have the fuel injection upgrades just to give it a chance against my much coveted 2004 6th generation. With this in mind, I picked up this slightly abused 2000 model year 5th gen VFR. Having been tipped and not ridden for a number of years, the bike suffers from a bad respray and a total lack of maintenance. So before we could even ride the bike, of course we had to strip it down and set to work repairing, upgrading, and replacing a number of items. Since purchasing, I've flushed the fork oil, replaced the spark plugs, bypassed the flapper diaphragm and removed the intake snorkel, upgraded to a K&N air filter, and installed these Bridgestone Battle Axe tires. In between time, we also replaced the brake pads, flushed the hydraulic systems, and replaced the clutch friction discs and upgraded the springs to some EBC clutch springs. I invested this money to make this 5th generation VFR as close as possible in performance to my 6th generation bike, setting them up almost identical with mods and new parts. Finished up now, it's time to put this bike head-to-head against that 6th generation. The first test was to check the ride, the general running and cornering, handling of this 5th generation bike. To be honest, I was a little surprised at how easy the 5th generation was to ride. The bike handles exceptionally well, responds identically to the input on the 6th generation VFR that I was used to, and at low speeds, it might even be a little bit better. The ergonomics felt exactly the same on both bikes. Now I use a set of Moto CNC bar risers on both of them, But the slightly narrower tank on the 5th generation VFR makes you feel the bike is smaller. And it is, ever so slightly. The Honda VFR has long been known as a comfortable yet sporty bike that is suited to twisty highways and high-speed corners, of which we have plenty. Now, brakes, wind protection, mirror visibility, all these were pretty much the same. Now, as far as handling and ergonomics go, I would be happily at home on either VFR. So when it comes to this category, handling and ergonomics, I think the bikes are tied. Now, the next area of consideration was styling. And this being my only comparison to the 5th generation in the last video, it's still the one that I cannot wrap my head around. Why somebody would say that the 5th generation VFR looks better than the 6th generation. The 5th generation VFR was styled after the MotoGP fairings of the era. But by 2002, Honda Racing Corporation managed to convert an up-and-coming MotoGP racer with the number plate designation 46 to a 990cc 4-stroke, replacing his 2-stroke NSR 500. Built for Valentino Rossi, the RC211V would propel HRC to the Constructors' Championship that year, being the first winner of the modern 4-stroke era for MotoGP.
Yes, it's a special moment for sure because it's the first race of this new series.
To capitalize on the new bike design, the new direction of HRC, Honda factory retail bikes also changed their looks to follow suit. The fairings became more angular and the lines sharper. The bikes started looking like they were moving even when they were standing still. Now, this refinement continues today, and I should probably feel nostalgic for the 2-stroke monster 500cc bikes of MotoGP past with the look and the embodiment in the 5th generation VFR. But I don't. The 6th generation looks modern, despite being almost 20 years old, and is more distinguishable as a Honda VFR in the seas of motorcycle design, especially when looking head-on. The undertail exhaust, digital speedometer, and angular dash add to the sleekness of the bike, and for the layman, this bike looks like it could be a year or two old and not 20. In the styling category, I stick to my original statement: the 6th generation wins.
Round 1. Fight! Finish him! Brutality.
Going head-to-head, I'm going to say that acceleration was where I felt the biggest difference between these two bikes. Now, there are several reasons why Honda engineers moved from the gear-driven camshafts of the 5th generation to chains. The one that stands out the most is rolling mass. The gear-driven system in the 5th generation bike takes more torque to get rolling than the chain drive system in the 6th generation VFR. To accelerate quicker, you want the engine torque to power your bike's momentum and not be diverted to spooling up rotational components. For this reason, the power delivery on the 6th generation bike is smoother, and as an added benefit, it's less finicky or less likely to stall when you engage the clutch at a low engine RPM from a standing start. Now, the more massive cam gearing system of the 5th generation bike, once up to speed, is harder to slow down and will rotate faster. For this reason, the 6th generation cam chain advantage dissipates at high RPM, but who rides all day at 8 to 10,000 RPM? Off the line, normal cruising, and then accelerating to pass another vehicle, the 6th generation engine just does a better job. This also leads me to VTEC. And if you're unfamiliar, VTEC in the Honda VFR changes the lift and duration of one of the two intake valves of each of the engine cylinders. In this 2004 model, below 6,799 RPM, the bike is essentially running on one intake valve per cylinder. At 6,800 RPM, the bike jumps in power using both intake valves. Now, this system is significantly different than the Honda Automobile VTEC, which changes duration and valve timing for both intake valves. VTEC gives the 6th generation and subsequent Honda VFRs slightly more torque below 3,200 RPM, while giving you the equivalent power output at higher RPM as, say, the 5th generation. In head-to-head acceleration, the 6th generation wins.
Round 2. Fight. Finish him. Pay your respects.
Now the next category is reliability and ease of servicing. There is one major flaw in the aforementioned cam chains of the 6th generation bike, and that is the cam chain tensioners. 3 out of the 4 6th generation VFRs I've owned needed both cam chain tensioners rebuilt or replaced. Now there is a simple retensioning process I use on these cam chain tensioners that works very well and restores their performance. Replacing them is also a good cure for the cam chain rattle at just around $150 each. There are more used and aftermarket parts for the 6th generation since it was produced 3 years longer than the 5th generation. And obviously overall, there were more 6th generation bikes sold to more riders. This means more recycled parts, more information on maintaining and owning them. I also want to dispel the myth that owning a 5th generation bike with gear-driven cams somehow means that you don't need to do valve adjustment shimming. Now I've seen this statement before, both in forums and in ads where people are trying to sell their 5th generation bike. I'm going to tell you, it just isn't true. The gear-actuated camshafts do nothing for valve adjustment, and just like the VFRs that came before it and after it, the 5th generation VFR needs to have periodic valve adjustments. Although it is easier to do this on the 5th generation without those cam chains and the VTEC valve engagement mechanism on the 6th generation and later bikes. Now the incessant drone of cam chain gear whine aside, I'm going to give reliability and ease of servicing to the 5th generation. Simply because more riders have done bigger things with their 5th generation bikes and survived to talk about it. The weak cam chain tensioners Honda used up until 2009 model year with the 6th generation bike are a major flaw that took them a long time to get correct. In head-to-head reliability and ease of servicing, the 5th generation wins.
Round 3. Fight. Impressive.
If you're enjoying the video so far, please take a moment to check out the Rod, Rides, and Wrenches channel and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And don't forget to set your notifications to active. Over the winter, we have a couple of big projects that we'll be working on and another motorcycle head-to-head comparison. On the channel, you'll find motorcycle maintenance how-tos, gear reviews, and a ton of other motorcycle-related good stuff. You won't be disappointed, and it's free to you. Just click the subscribe button because I really do appreciate your subs and all your comments. Plus, don't forget to share this video with your forum or subgroup. So the comparison I'm going to make next is in affordability and the cost of ownership. The 5th generation VFR is still a highly sought after machine. Combined with its limited 4-year production run, it still fetches a top dollar in the pre-owned market, since there's a high demand and a fairly limited supply. An investment in the 5th generation Honda VFR, provided you don't damage it, is probably going to hold its value and maybe even increase a little bit. A 5th generation bike, when it was brand new, ran right around $900 to $9,500 US, and a good condition one still brings $4,000 to $5,000 if you can find it. Occasionally, you'll see a pristine example for sale that are even more money. Although the 5th and 6th generation VFRs share a lot of similarities like that RC46 engine platform, frame, swing arm, forks, some unique 5th gen parts are getting harder to buy from Honda since they're no longer in production. Now the 6th generation bike is far more plentiful and it's sold for over $10,000 US new. You can still find low mileage examples relatively easy for the same price as the aforementioned 5th generation bikes. And the 6th generation bike is going to be 4 or 5 years newer and may even have ABS if you want that sort of thing. High mileage examples of the 6th generation sell for only $1,000 or $2,000, and there are plenty of used parts if you needed an engine swap or anything else. A number of secondary parts suppliers have also stepped up on the 6th generation Honda VFR because of its popularity and its abundance in the marketplace. This ensures a greater availability of parts into the future, even though the quality might not necessarily be the same as the original Honda. The 6th generation VFR, with its higher supply and lower initial cost of ownership, more abundant supply of parts from Honda and the aftermarket, head-to-head, this goes to the 6th generation as well.
Final round. Fight. Finish. Fatality.
Well, that's it. It's 3-1 with one tie for handling and ergonomics. Now, I know all the 5th gen riders out there are getting angrier by the minute. I mean, how dare I besmirch the integrity of their beloved 5th generation bike? But if I was going to put my money down, oh wait, I did. The bike that I'm going to continue to own and ride is the 6th generation as the best Honda VFR that you can buy. Bring on the comments, and until next time, ride safe.
Throne defended.